Welcome to Sacred Stories. Today, we will delve into the fascinating and dramatic story of Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities that became symbols of corruption and divine judgment. At the heart of this biblical account, we find cities that, at first glance, flourished in wealth and prosperity. However, beneath this prosperous appearance, there was a core poisoned by immorality and injustice. Let us begin our journey through the dusty pages of the book of Genesis, where the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah play a notorious role. At that time lived a man named Adam Hako. It was to be tested by the actions of these prosperous cities at first glance. Sodom and Gomorrah flaunted wealth and success. However, beneath the shining surface, hidden evil boiled intensely, and it was an era of slumbering consciousness. The visible splendor concealed a corrupt core, leading us to deeply reflect on notions of right and wrong. And what about the consequences of our choices? The outcome of Sodom and Gomorrah was triggered by such an alarming divine revelation that the sin of these cities reached the heavens, as narrated in Genesis 18 verse 20. The Lord himself declares that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grievous. This verse not only highlights the chasm between divine knowledge and human experience, but also underscores the importance of our actions reflecting our values. The story deepens when God shares his observations with Abraham, not as a reminder of what is just, but as a way for Abraham to understand the essence of justice. This heavenly dialogue is not only about sin or punishment, but also about understanding and responding to injustice, highlighting how our actions reverberate and shape the world around us. In an era when the stars still told stories and destinies were woven into the fabric of the cosmos, lived Abraham, a man whose faith was as immense as the land beneath his feet. Known for his unparalleled hospitality, Abraham offered a shining contrast to the dark cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, whose souls were entangled in webs of selfishness and wickedness. Amid this darkness, Abraham's life shone like a beacon of hope and benevolence. At the heart of this narrative, God, in his omniscient wisdom, entrusted Abraham with a secret that would change the course of history: the imminent destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah due to their deplorable actions. But Abraham, the eternal intercessor, could not remain silent. His response was not just a request, but the fervent plea of a man who deeply valued human life, including that of strangers. Approaching God with a heavy heart, Abraham asked, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" This interaction not only reflects the ancient conception of justice, where the fate of many could be determined by the behavior of a few, but it also resonates with an eternal truth about the nature of compassion and responsibility. Abraham's plea echoes ancient beliefs found not only in the Bible, but also in narratives like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where leaders pleaded that only the guilty be punished, preserving the innocent. These stories share a common theme: the pursuit of justice in a frequently unjust world. In the epic tapestry of humanity, few scenes are as poignant as Abraham's plea to save Sodom. In his supplication to God, Abraham did not merely ask for mercy, but based his request on distributive justice. If there were only a few righteous souls in Sodom, the entire city deserved to be spared. This appeal was not an empty gesture, but a powerful acknowledgement that personal responsibility and communal identity are intertwined. While Sodom and Gomorrah prospered materially, their wealth was stained by corruption and immorality. They were blind to the impending disaster, intoxicated by a vicious cycle of indulgence and excess. In dramatic contrast to this setting was Abraham, a man whose goodness and morality were as tangible as the material riches of the doomed cities. He strove to save any righteous people that might still exist within those walls of decadence. The dialogue between Abraham and God is not only a reflection on divine judgment, but also a profound testament to mercy, compassion, and the transformative impact of intercession. Abraham teaches us a vital lesson. Even in the face of enormous adversity, the action of a single person can ignite a light of hope and change. As we delve deeper into the narrative of Sodom and Gomorrah, we encounter a gallery of characters whose lives form a mosaic of choices and actions, each contributing to the final fate of the cities. The story unfolds not just as a record of past events, but as a mirror reflecting our own lives and the contemporary world. This narrative serves as a warning, reminding us that our actions have consequences that, once unleashed, are irreversible and have the potential to influence many aspects of life. The moral collapse of Sodom and Gomorrah is a powerful illustration of the importance of grounding our lives in solid ethical and moral values. The sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, as explored in Genesis 19 and revisited in New Testament texts like 2 Peter and Jude, transcend mere sexual depravity. These cities are often portrayed as symbols of lust and corruption, but a deeper analysis reveals that their sins were multifaceted, encompassing not only sexual transgressions but also a profound lack of compassion and respect for others. The actions of the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah towards the visiting angels are just one example of their reprehensible conduct. This episode highlights how the lack of hospitality, considered extremely serious in many ancient cultures, can be symptomatic of a broader moral problem that permeates a society. As night fell over Sodom and Gomorrah, cities trembling on the edge of judgment, two celestial visitors arrived disguised as mere mortals. These divine messengers were not ordinary travelers, but emissaries from heaven, destined to test the moral fiber of these cities. Lot, a relative of Abraham and resident of Sodom, quickly discerned the true nature of his visitors. In a time and place where hospitality was not merely a gesture of courtesy but a sacred duty, Lot welcomed them into his home, standing for what he knew was right. The reaction of the inhabitants of Sodom, however, was diametrically opposed. Driven by a mixture of morbid curiosity and sinister intentions, the crowds gathered around Lot's house, displaying conduct that reflected the city's deep ethical decline. The aggressive and relentless behavior of the mob not only exposed a lack of respect for basic norms of hospitality, but also revealed other layers of sin afflicting the cities: sexual immorality, pride, and a propensity for violence. This incident, vividly recorded in Genesis 19, contrasts the protection offered by Lot to his guests with the rampant hostility of the city. Here, the biblical narrative not only paints a vivid picture of the depravity of Sodom and Gomorrah, but also serves as a mirror to our own lives, underscoring the importance of integrity and morality. Tension in Sodom reaches a disturbing climax when the men of the city, both young and old, gather around Lot's house, driven by nefarious intentions. This scene, detailed in Genesis 19 verses 4-5, is crucial. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can know them." This demand was not simply a failure of hospitality, but a violent and immoral request that violated the most sacred customs of protection toward guests, considered essential in many ancient societies. What follows is a demonstration of moral courage and sacrifice on Lot's part, as he tries to protect his visitors by offering his own daughters in their place. A gesture that, though deeply problematic by modern standards, in that context highlighted his desperation to uphold the duty of protecting his guests at all costs. The gravity of the situation is so extreme that divine intervention becomes necessary. The angels, now revealed in their true celestial form, strike the aggressors with blindness, preventing them from carrying out their violent acts. This miracle not only protects Lot's guests, but also serves as a clear sign of the imminent divine judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah, cities whose moral corruption had overflowed. The corruption of Sodom, therefore, was multifaceted, involving not only sexual immorality but also a profound lack of respect and humanity, a transgression of the fundamental values that upheld society. The verses in Ezekiel 16 verses 49-50 shed even more revealing light on the complexity of Sodom's sins, extending the narrative far beyond mere sexual immorality or failure in hospitality. Ezekiel says, "Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen." These verses highlight not only sexual decadence but also a series of moral failures that permeated Sodom's society: arrogance, complacency in abundance, and a grave lack of compassion for the marginalized. The failure to help the needy, in particular, points to a deep-seated selfishness and a severe neglect of social responsibilities, offenses that, in God's eyes, required divine correction. The Hebrew term translated as detestable things is often used to describe acts deemed morally repulsive, emphasizing that Sodom's transgressions involved a variety of wrong behaviors. The discussion about the sins of Sodom, therefore, is not limited to a single moral failure but encompasses a range of serious ethical issues: perverse sexuality, extreme arrogance, and a profound failure to care for the vulnerable. The intervention of the angels underscores the imminent danger threatening Sodom. Lot, Abraham's nephew, is a central figure in this part of the story, representing a remnant of goodness amidst the corruption. These verses highlight not only sexual decadence but also a series of moral failures that permeated Sodom's society: arrogance, complacency in abundance, and a grave lack of compassion for the marginalized. The failure to help the needy, in particular, points to a deep-seated selfishness and a severe neglect of social responsibilities, offenses that, in God's eyes, required divine correction. The Hebrew term translated as detestable things is often used to describe acts deemed morally repulsive, emphasizing that Sodom's transgressions involved a variety of wrong behaviors. The discussion about the sins of Sodom, therefore, is not limited to a single moral failure but encompasses a range of serious ethical issues: perverse sexuality, extreme arrogance, and a profound failure to care for the vulnerable. The intervention of the angels underscores the imminent danger threatening Sodom. Lot, Abraham's nephew, is a central figure in this part of the story, representing a remnant of goodness amidst the corruption. The way Lot welcomes the strangers and protects them starkly contrasts with the hostility of his neighbors, shedding light on the true values that a society should embrace. His conduct not only prompts us to reflect on how we treat the less fortunate, but also reiterates the importance of hospitality and protection of the vulnerable as measures of our collective and individual character. The angels, perceiving the gravity of the situation, urge Lot to act quickly. They reveal that Sodom's destruction is near due to the outcry of its injustices, which has reached the ears of God.